guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be driving this, quite frankly, ridiculous Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. Essentially an SUV with Porsche's iconic GT badging on it. This car is capable of going around the Nordschleife in 7 minutes and 38 seconds. That's not bridge to gantry, that's a full lap. This is based on Porsche's Cayenne Coupe, and that starts at £65,000 here in the UK, except this Turbo GT variant retails at £144,000. And actually this particular press car has had a few options thrown at it, and it sits just below £160,000. The Cayenne is built on the Volkswagen Group's MLB platform, so cars like the Audi RSQ8, the Bentayga, the Lamborghini Urus, they all share the same platform underneath. And in fact, they all share a 4-litre V8 twin-turbo engine, the same one that's found in Audi's RS6 and RS7, except Porsche took that engine and changed it somewhat. It has new internals, new intake, new crankshaft, a new cooling system, and even a full titanium exhaust. And as a result, the 4-litre in this particular car produces 640 horsepower and 850 newton meters of torque. That's actually 10 horsepower down on the Lamborghini Urus. But don't think of this as a numbers game only. It's the way this engine responds to throttle inputs, it's the way it revs, it has such character, and you can really feel from the second you pull away the differences and changes that Porsche have made to it. In fact, this car has a claimed 0 to 60 figure of just 3.1 seconds, which we'll test a bit later, and a claimed 0 to 100 figure of 7.7 seconds, which is just mind-blowing for something this big and something that weighs 2.2 tons. It also has a limited top speed of 190 miles an hour. This GT has some subtle styling tweaks over the regular Cayenne Turbo Coupe. It has slightly bigger air intakes around the front end, carbon fibre door mirror caps, a carbon fibre roof, and when you get around the back end, well, it has 2 spoilers, a roof spoiler and an active boot spoiler. That will extend when you're giving this car some welly and give you some extra downforce. And then of course we've got the gorgeous titanium exhaust that we talked about when we're looking at the engine. It also sits 17 millimeters lower than a turbo, and it has a wider front track. In fact, it also has wider front tyres. These are 285 section rubber, and no regular rubber either. They're Pirelli P0 Corsas, which are Pirelli's semi-track tyre, and these ones are homologated just for this car. So it really is special. Comes with massive carbon ceramic brakes as standard, and these gorgeous golden 22-inch alloys. Jumping inside, well, it's really special in here as well, and there are some details that separate it from a regular Cayenne. There's lots of golden stitching to match the golden alloys on the outside, on the steering wheel, on the dashboard, and there's Alcantara absolutely everywhere. These seats are really good. They're not the best in the business. I still think the seats in the X6M competition, which are effectively the M5 and M5 competition seats, I think they are the best seats for this sort of vehicle. But I have to say, these are very comfortable, very supportive. They have cloth or Alcantara down the inserts with the golden sort of stripe as well. We've got Turbo GT on the headrest there. In fact, we've got Turbo GT down here on the storage bin lid. I believe that's an optional extra. In terms of driving position, well, it's very, very good. Initially, I did feel like I was sitting quite high, but I think that's just because I'm in an SUV that drives like a sports car. It really is a confusing car to get your head around when you first drive it because it's just so capable. Steering wheel is lovely. It's a Porsche GT type steering wheel. We've got a drive selector here, so we've got basically comfort, sport and sport plus. We've got an individual as well, and when you press it, Well, that gives us 20 seconds of sport response, which basically gives you a little bit more of everything for that 20 seconds. But there's not really any time when you're driving this car that you feel like you need a little bit more of everything, because it has a lot of everything. These sporty coupe SUVs do concern me in terms of practicalities a lot of the time. That X6M competition I had was very tight for space in the back in terms of legroom and headroom, and the boot wasn't particularly large. I actually had the opportunity to ride in the back seat yesterday while my girlfriend drove me back from a rather drunken lunch. She was sober, obviously, and I'm glad that I did, because there was plenty of space back there, loads of legroom, and in fact plenty of headroom. I'm 6'4", and although my short hair was just about touching the Alcantara headlining, I was sitting there in absolute comfort, and that's really impressive when you look at this car from the outside with the sloping roofline. That extends to the boot as well. There's about 600 litres of boot space, which is impressive. So it really is quite a practical car. It's not just a massive footprint on the road. This is strictly a four-seater, very similar to that M5 CS I had recently. In fact, the M5 CS and this Cayenne Turbo GT are very similar in many ways: price, power, performance, how rare they are. Although they look very different on the outside, they actually both come together to producing very, very similar vehicles, but that's a conversation for another day. There's loads of technology in here, as you would expect from a brand new Porsche that's on sale today. It has the very latest PCM, which is actually Android Auto friendly. So for the first time, I believe you can connect your Android Auto to a Porsche. Got some really nice dials in front of me. All this layout's lovely. Some usable cup holders and a fair amount of storage. I'm not a fan of the way the dashboard looks over there on the passenger side, but that's probably my only complaint in terms of aesthetics and layout of this particular cabin. Let's get this car on the road. I'm going to start this driving piece with the couple of negatives that I've found with this car in the time that I've had it, and there really are a couple, but I have to point them out, and then we'll get onto all the good points. First one is the buffeting you get when you put your window down. Even if the driver and passenger window are down, or one of the rear windows, you get horrendous buffeting in this car. The next negative is the gear selector, and although this one is covered in Alcantara and looks reasonably good to the eye, in terms of operation, well, it just doesn't feel great. It feels like it's surrounded by some quite nasty plastics, and when you use it, you don't really know where you are, unlike the paddles, which are just beautiful billet aluminium. So it's a bit of a mismatch, and that might feel okay in a 60 grand Cayenne, but in something costing nearly 160, well, it doesn't really sit right to me. My last and final negative about this car is fuel consumption, and I know that someone buying one of these is not going to be worried about how much it costs to fuel, but it's something that I need to point out anyway. The most I've seen is 21 miles to the gallon on a long run at 70 odd miles an hour, but since I've had the car over the past 3 days, I've averaged 12 miles to the gallon. Thankfully though, this car has a 90 litre tank, so even with its crazy thirst, you still get a very good range. This is one of the fastest cars I've had the pleasure of driving in my entire life. It really is absolutely ballistic, and we'll get onto that a bit later. But what is perhaps more impressive about this car is when you knock the drive select mode back into normal and take it out of manual, well, everything just settles down so well. You quickly forget that you're riding on 22-inch wheels, and you forget about all the little changes that Porsche have made to this Cayenne GT to make it handle well, because in normal scenarios, driving it to the shops and back, carrying your friends around, well, it's just a joy to live with. It's so comfortable. The air suspension floats along this road very similar to the RSQ8 and Audi's RS6 and RS7. They're all very similar air suspension systems, but without feeling too top heavy or SUV like. I have a 3-way adjustable damper system, so I tend to have it either in the softest setting or the one up. But when you put it in the stiffest setting, well, it's way too stiff for any UK roads that are near me. Maybe that would be good for the track. And yes, I did just say track when I'm relating to an SUV, because I think this, over one lap at least, would be absolutely mind-blowing. Well, we know it's very quick around the Nürburgring, and I think it would be quick around most UK circuits and give a lot of sports cars a run for their money. It's just epic. Even at these slow speeds, the way it handles and the way it drives is really, really good. This has an all-wheel steer setup or four-wheel steering setup, so when you're maneuvering around town, parking, or doing a 3-point turn, it makes it very, very easy, because the turning circle is a lot smaller than you'd think for a car of this size. And it also helps shrink the car around you when you start pushing on. But it's a very, very clever system, and Porsche have tweaked that system in this car for this particular Turbo GT. Right, let's knock it over into Sport Plus, over into manual, back the dampers off 1, so they're into the middle setting, and push on a little bit and talk about this car's capabilities, its handling dynamics, because they are unbelievable. The pace, well, we'll talk about the acceleration in a second, but let's just talk about its handling. The first time you turn it in, you just can't believe what you're feeling underneath. The car stays completely level, but the turn-in is just magical. This has some extra added negative camber on the front wheels, and you feel that along with everything else that Porsche have done under the skin. It's just mind-blowing. Oh. Steering feel, not something I thought I would be talking about when reviewing an SUV. The reason I say that is SUVs have got brilliant commanding driving positions, but you tend to be so far away from the tarmac that you're driving along, and therefore the connection between the contact patch and the tyre and the tarmac and the rim of the steering wheel is so big. Then you factor in the massive 22-inch wheels and huge 285 section tyres, the EPAS electronic steering system, and all of that added together usually ends up giving you a fairly numb steering feel. But in this car, I can feel absolutely everything going on underneath me, which is really confusing. This has a lot more steering feel than my M3 competition does. How have Porsche managed to do that? I really don't have any clue, but hats off for doing it, because it's so much better as a result. Unreal. In terms of acceleration figures, well, we already know that Porsche claimed this would do the 0 to 60 sprint in just 3.1 seconds. It was actually meant to rain today, so a couple of days ago I set up my race box and my cameras, and I tested that claim out for myself. So let's rewind to that, and then you can join me back here for the end of the video. Let's test out this car's acceleration figures. Porsche claim it will do the 0 to 60 sprint in just 3.1 seconds. It feels every bit as fast as that. My race box is ready. Left foot is hard down on the brake, right foot on the accelerator. Here we go. Oh my God, off the line, it is just savage. Absolutely savage. It's just crazy. This car is mental. 3.03 seconds to 60 miles an hour. That's identical to the very latest M5 competition, and not far off that M5 CS I had recently. That did it in 2.75 seconds. If anything, this feels faster, just because you're sitting higher. It honestly feels like it's wheeling off the line. As I'm sure most of you will agree, 3 seconds to 60 miles an hour in something this big, weighing 2.2 tons, is massively, massively impressive. And this will go on to 100 miles an hour in a claimed 7.7 seconds. That is supercar territory in a large SUV. There's plenty of other competitors to the Cayenne Turbo GT, but none of them do it as well as this car. BMW's X6M competition is awkward and ugly looking, cramped in the back seats as well, and has an awful ride in any mode, so really does not suit the UK at all. The Lamborghini Urus, well, it's £40,000 more spec for spec, and it's really not that good looking. I think it's crass. It looks like something that's just come out of Halfords. This car has far more class than a Urus is ever going to have. Then you look at the Bentley Bentayga, again on the same platform, but I really think that car is for a different clientele, and it gives you a different sort of machine. You're not going to take a Bentayga out for a Sunday morning blast, whereas this car you probably would. Then we can talk about my current favourite prior to this, the Audi RS Q8. They start at £107,000 here in the UK and offer 95% of the performance that's available in this. The good thing with the RS Q8 is you also get that incredible ride quality and daily usability. I absolutely love that car. And let's not forget, the RS Q8 will lap the Nürburgring in 7 minutes and 42 seconds. So only 4 seconds slower than this car, which is really, really impressive considering, well, it costs nearly £40,000 less. But just like with the M5 CS, if you've got the money for one of these Cayenne Turbo GTs, then why not buy the absolute best? And there's no denying that this is the king of the crop. I absolutely love it, and if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would have one of these silly things in my 10-car garage. Guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more content on this crazy Cayenne Turbo GT, head over to my Yes Auto page. There'll be a link below in the description, and I'll give you 5 reasons why I think this car is worth £145,000. Until next time, stay tuned, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.
Hold on to him.
I did just have beans on toast. Nice, good.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Watch out, him.
Hold on him.
Yep. Here we go.
Oh, I don't like it. Oh my god.
Oh, even I feel. Oh wow, my head's gone all funny.
I didn't like that. I never do that again. Oh,